Guys, if you've never heard Yeat's music before, I'm telling you now, you're going to go into 2 Alive and have one of the wildest experiences of the entire year, because the major takeaway for me was the fact that Yeat is literally creating his own language with this album, and there's so many amazing moments. And if you guys aren't familiar with Yeat, he's actually an up-and-coming artist from California. He's been dropping music for a couple of years, but lately he's been building up a lot of buzz because he's been getting co-signs from the likes of Lil Uzi Vert, from Drake, and so many more. Just signed a huge deal with Interscope Records. So in today's video, guys, we'll be breaking down Yeat's new album 2 Alive, giving you kind of our raw thoughts on the album, and let us know down in the comments what you think of the album. And how did you feel with that first experience, bro? Because to me, it was a blast.
It was an absolute blast, and especially with our whole community, because we ended up doing a live album reaction to 2 Alive on our Patreon plan in the reaction tier. If you guys want to access that, link in the description. And we're doing live album reactions on a weekly basis for the hottest drops in the industry.
Was it one of your favorite first listen experiences?
No, it definitely was, and I'll tell you why. Because there was so much surprise and there was so much raw emotion that went into this album, especially for the first half. And getting into this album was quite interesting because I'm not too familiar with Yeat's music, and that was the challenge for me going into 2 Alive, was how do I become accustomed to his sound? How do I try to understand it and, really fall forward with it? Because I think I'm guilty of going into albums sometimes and having like this, prejudgment of an artist, or kind of being like, I maybe listen to one song and I'm going to write off a whole album. But I went in with a clear head and I kind of understood what he was trying to go for. So what were like your first initial thoughts, like especially when you started off the album yesterday night, and how are you feeling right now about
Listen,
it?
If you've been keeping up with like the underground, well, he's kind of leaning into the mainstream now, but if you were keeping up with the underground, you would know that Yeat has become a phenomenon for a lot of hip-hop listeners, just because he has a very unique look and image with the way that he wraps scarves around his head and stuff, and he's just trying to be unique and stand out, and he is doing a good job at that, because he's also become known for using these iconic bells in his production. So there was a lot of anticipation for this Yeat project, and I was never too crazy about this music, because, guys, going into this, you have to know that like the music's gonna be shallow, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, because if you know Yeat's music, and at least if you get to know it, you'll understand what he's trying to go for. And this project is all about hype. Like, you have to understand that there's only certain settings where this would work, and that's kind of what I took away from it the most, was the fact that there's only certain environments where I'll see myself actually bumping the fucking album. Like, it's a great background music to me personally. Like, if I would be playing video games, I'd love to have this in the background. If I were to be at a party where I kind of just want to vibe out to some really nice production, which this album is full of. I love the electronic sounds. I love the whole lot of Red-esque kind of chiptune synths that are sprinkled throughout from producers such as Filthy and so many more. So, yeah, I kind of feel like it kind of maybe is more background music, because at the end of the day, the lyrics have no like value in a sense, and you don't really have to understand what he's saying to even fucking like the music.
That's facts.
Does that kind of like knock it down a few points, the fact that if you listen to the entire song, what he's saying from one line to the next has no correlation and doesn't really have any like importance?
No, and I didn't go in expecting that, because you're obviously not getting Illmatic or Tip of a Butterfly here. You have to go in expecting something different. And I think that, for the artists that are trying to, capture that sort of hype, new sort of, I would say futuristic synth sound that, is prominent in albums like Whole Lotta Red, Yeat's own rendition of that is fantastic, because I also feel like, yes, he does wear his influences heavily on his sleeve, example like Cardi or Thugger. I even caught some Gunna flows within the album, but I think for the most part, he's really good at shaping his own sound, and I think it's prominent within the production. So example, throughout the whole track list, you guys are going to find all kinds of instances where you're going to hear like some sprinkles of bells everywhere. And now, how many different artists are trying to use that sort of production style to be able to captivate their artists? Because I think that's what Yeat does best within this album, is he keeps you captivated. And that was something that I was really impressed with, because before going into the album, I saw 20 tracks and I'm like, geez, this is going to be a long listen.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, it only started getting a bit dragged on once I reached 12 to 13 tracks, so that was impressive for me. I didn't go through, a trap album in a long time that had that sort of like instant feel through it. So I'm gonna get into a couple of tracks that I've been enjoying.
Yeah,
and,
tell me, let's say your top 3 favorite songs off of that.
All right, so I want to go through the first half of the album, because I definitely think it is stronger on that end, and I think that's where I'm gonna be plucking out most of my songs. So Real 6, Never Again, and Lug Geek. I think those are for sure my top 3 on it. But how about you? What would you say are your biggest
top
standouts?
3? I mean, I would definitely say the intro Poppin'. I love the momentum that he built on that song. Another standout for me would have to be Jump. I see that going crazy at like mosh pits. I see people going absolutely berserk to that. And like speaking of that, I have no fucking idea how fans at his shows are gonna be able to like rap along to his lyrics.
Apparently, they're always sold out.
That's the biggest challenge, bro. Is like, how are you gonna actually like rap along to what he's saying, because it's inaudible. But that is what makes him so fascinating. Like, I feel like Yeat really strives, not obviously with his writing, but more with his flow switches, more with his melodies. And he's so animated, he's so charismatic. And my major takeaway was the fact that there's so much fluff in every song. But when I say fluff, I mean in the sense of ad-libs. I mean in the sense of these bells, of these grunts that he's doing. And that's what keeps you engaged throughout an entire song. It's because of how much is going on in that one track and how layered the production is as well. But going back to my favorite songs, I'd go Poppin'. My second favorite would be Call Me, just because this one is very distinct compared to the rest of the track list, because he's kind of singing a bit more. You get these punk-esque inflections from him vocally. And then my third favorite would have to be,
What would you say?
Taliban went super hard.
Taliban is fantastic as well. That was super impressive for me too, is that, he kind of switches it up on every song with his flows and his cadence switches. That was something that I enjoyed, because I find a big problem in trap music right now, because you could kind of hear the trap influence within the album. You start to see how artists, kind of only have an arsenal of a couple of flows and a couple of cadences, and they'll end it there. But what's interesting about Yeat is that he goes out of his comfort zone, and he really tries to bring in new melodies on every song. He tries to bring in singing at some times. And listen, the only part of the album that I didn't necessarily enjoy was on Just Better, where I felt as if the production was completely carrying him, and there was a singing performance that really wasn't too good. But I kind of salute him for that, because at the end of the day, that was something that was experimental for me, and that's something that we've been asking artists to do, is like, get out of your comfort zone, create something that's new and refreshing to the scene. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, this sounds completely like Whole Lotta Red, or this sounds like this. I don't think so. Like, I did not get the same emotions from Two Alive than what I had gotten with Whole Lotta Red. Yeah. So what do you think distinguishes Yeat's sound from everyone else's in the industry just off of this list?
Yeah, it's definitely the way that like he literally is changing the way that we look at the fucking English dictionary, because he carved his own dialect here. And I mean, you do pick up on some things in terms of his bars. Like, Yeat is a very simple man. He likes his Tonka trunks. I mean, he likes going and scurrying off with his cars and having these crazy drives. He likes spending time with some baddies. Like, he kind of paints this picture of him living this simple lifestyle, and it's just cool to see how extravagant and how much of a maniac he kind of personifies himself as. But I think that's what distinguishes him, is just the way that he's able to sound so different. And like you were saying, I feel like we're at a point now where trap music and clout rap has become so formulaic, but Yeat's sound is so refreshing to me, and I think that's why I enjoyed it. And to Cardi's credit, I feel like listening to an album like Whole Lotta Red and having time to digest that has warmed me up to something like Yeat's Two Alive. And at the end of the day, I mean, there are some flaws. Like, to be honest with you, I feel like certain songs started sounding repetitive. I felt like the production was kind of blending in from one song to the next. There was also the song Narcotics that kind of felt like a demo. The mixing and mastering was weak on there, despite the mixing being phenomenal all throughout the track.
Yeah, that was the only song that kind of surprised me, because we were in the listening party yesterday and we were looking at what the community was saying, and even on their end, they had problems with the mixing and mastering, because the beat was so low and the production was so low, and even at that, his vocals throughout the project are a bit lower as well. And it kind of made for like a weird listen, because you're trying to really catch on to what he's saying, and it almost becomes inaudible at that point. But let's talk about some features, all right? So how did you like Young KO on Narcotics? And do you think that he was able to at least bring, a bit more energy to that track?
Yeah, he was definitely bringing more energy and honestly more of a clear delivery, which was needed, I think, on that song. But that's another thing too. I feel like Yeat strives better when you could actually make out the words that he's saying, because there are those like brief moments from song to song.
Taliban had that though. Taliban did have that clear rapping, which I did enjoy, in that, especially for the hooks on this album. There's a lot of great hooks that keep you engaged. So
what was your favorite feature?
What was my favorite feature? Honestly, Thug killed it, bro. Thug really did super well. I believe it was on Outside. Yeah, that was really nice. I mean, it's more of like Yeat was trying to match Thug's energy, and you could kind of hear it in the way that he was using his deliveries and his flows, but Thug came through and absolutely slid on it. Even Gunna
did a
and
nice job.
did really, really, really well. Besides that, how about Ken Carson on Geek High? How did you like that?
Kind of a bit disappointing for me, but
it was a bit of a short verse too. Eh?
Yeah, I think I'm more on, just feeling out those Thugger and Gunna verses. Those were the ones that really impressed me. And apparently Uzi's going to be on the deluxe version. So I'm curious to see how that ends up sounding like. But Yeah, overall, man, like, how are you feeling on the album? And let me ask you this before you get to that, actually. Do you think that this will age well and that could it maybe influence other artists?
Absolutely, I do think so, and I think it's obviously stemming from the whole, Cardi movement that was going on with like, those, chiptune synths and everything that you were mentioning at the beginning. And what's also crazy about the project that kind of, gets me hyped is there's all kinds of different producers on this. There's like, I think the only consistency within a producer having like 2 or more credits is like maybe once on the whole project, and that's what's impressive is that the soundscape of the album actually sounded really nice. Like there was this playful energy throughout it, but the bells ringing throughout the whole production, at least for the track list, was cool. The sequencing on the album was nice because I feel as if the darker tracks were placed at the second half of the album, and then towards the end you got a bit more, softer performances, but they were still really nice. But
you mean darker ones at the beginning, right?
Darker ones at the start, and then the more melodic.
You said at the end.
Oh, my bad. Yeah. Sorry about that. But either way, like the only issue I have is that after Taliban, once you get to Narcotics, and then once you get towards the end, which is still Counted, which got the lyrical Lemonade video. So I believe the other one is Smooktober. That's the other one. I feel as if that's maybe where the track list dips off for me, at least in my opinion. So overall thoughts, I'm impressed. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I didn't necessarily expect too much because this is my first time ever going into a Yeat project, and the first couple of songs that I heard from him, I was a bit iffy about it because I didn't necessarily understand the appeal. I didn't understand what he was going for, but now that I've given him a chance and I've gone song by song, I understand the appeal. I understand where he's going with his music, and I still think there needs to be improvement on his side, especially when it comes to trimming down the track list. I think that the second half kind of fell off a bit for me, but when it comes to a trap album, this is really solid, and honestly, my rating is good. I think that it was actually a really good listen.
Yeah, I think for myself, I was just like fucking super impressed that I enjoyed as many tracks as I did. And like you were saying, that's the major flaw that we're seeing with a lot of these new wave trap albums, is that the track lists are way too long. Like if Yeat had cut this down to like 10 or 12 songs, it would have been banger after banger,
even 14,
man.
Like it wasn't that much. Like there really wasn't much filler on this project, and that's what impressed me. But keep going with your thoughts.
Absolutely. But yeah, for me, I think that Yeat really succeeds here, even though the track list is too long and there's certain songs that start sounding similar to others. So that's kind of a flaw for me. And I don't think like him having influences from Cardi and from Young Thug bothered me too much because, like I said, he has his own refreshing sound. But going into this, like if you guys watch the live album reaction, you'll see that like beginning of the track list, I had a fucking adrenaline rush, bro. I had so much energy that he brought into me with his delivery, and that's what you have to expect with this. Like, you can't go into this project expecting good writing. You can't go into it expecting a narrative. You have to just have fun with it and realize that, like, this album is truly only going to work in certain settings, but for what it is, it's a fun album, and I see myself going back to some of these tracks. I don't see myself doing a whole listen of the album, but there's a lot of quality tracks for you guys to take out of it. And let us know in the comments which one is your favorite and how you guys feel overall about the album. So, like Ant mentioned earlier, you guys can actually access our full live album reaction. And before I actually finish off the video, my rating is actually going to be, I'm kind of in between mid and good.
Come on, match me on the good, man. Match me on the good, man.
I mean,
it was a good listen. It was a good listen.
But it was just too long. Like that's something I can't ignore. As much as I love the tracks, it was a good amount that I didn't enjoy. So I think it's refreshing. I think it's fun, but there's a lot of work to be made in terms of really narrowing down that track list. So I still had too much of a good time with it. I got to go good with it.
Yeah,
but
it was too much of a fun listen to be able to put it down.
And
there.
If you guys want to see how we did enjoy that first experience, like I was saying, check out our full live album reaction. Link is available in the description and also in the pinned comment. You guys can actually get the bump albums with us on the weekly. So we'd love to have you guys there. Thank you so much for watching this review, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching the full video, and if you're new to NFR, be sure to hit that subscribe button, as we'll be keeping you guys updated with the latest album releases in terms of update videos, album reviews, and our own original series on the weekly. And we also have our Patreon plan available in the description below, where you can access weekly bonus content and also access to our Discord. So be sure to check out all of that, and we'll catch you in the next one.